Hello guys, I'm safely here in Bali and I'm Schalk Brits and you're watching the final whistle.
Hello and welcome back to the final whistle, brought to you by the Rugby Connection podcast. It has been a while since we've sat down and done interviews, but we're back with a bang. An absolute legend over here in the Premiership, over 200 appearances for Saracens, 4 Premiership titles, 2 Champions Cups, and if that doesn't impress you, he also won the World Cup with the Springboks. And it's none other than Schalk Brits. Schalk, thank you so much for coming on. How are you getting on?
Oh, Murray, I'm actually sitting in Bali. It's, what's the time now? 22:11 at night. And life is actually fantastic. I've got time with my 3 boys and my missus, so life is very good. I can't complain. But the one thing I do see is you've got beautiful shirts just behind you. It's a thing of beauty.
Just for you.
Thank you, Murray.
I am jealous that you're in Bali, though. I won't lie to you. It does seem like a dream.
I must say, this is great surf, great weather, fantastic ice creams, and the food is phenomenal. And the best of all, the people are extremely friendly. So that's pretty sweet.
Ticks all the boxes. First question, we ask all our guests this, just to kind of get the ball rolling. What actually got you into rugby in the first place? I know you're from South Africa, it's a big rugby country, but there is cricket and other sports as well, and everyone's story is different.
Well, look, rugby was actually just rugby, cricket, tennis, wrestling, surfing, or bodyboarding rather. That was all things squash. Everything as a young kid, the weather sort of put you sort of in a place to do all those kind of sports. And of course, rugby was just one of those sports. Of course, we loved the Springboks back then, the Proteas. And you every day you play around with your mates. Growing up as the only child, you know, I had a couple of imaginary friends that I played rugby against, and cricket against, and all, and tennis against the wall. But for me, rugby only became sort of professional at the end of my schooling years at 17 when I got offered a contract. But I mean, I was quite fortunate to have great friends and of course a father and a mother that really supported me. So at junior level, I played quite a lot of provincial, all kinds of sports, from wrestling to cricket to a lot of different things. So for me it was just a fun thing to play with, sort of any kind of ball really, or in other sense like wrestling. It was just something that I liked. It was, as a young kid, I was quite an aggressive kid, and because I always wanted to fight most things and fight for my place in the world, and I was well, probably still is quite hyperactive. There was a way of getting rid of all my energy.
Fair enough. The wrestling, I'm guessing you mean like amateur wrestling, like what you get in the Olympics with the head guards and the not like John Cena and Hulk Hogan and all that.
No, that is that's more for the TVs. This wrestling is where you wear very, very average suits. That was normally a blue and red, and it can turn over. We never had in South Africa those earmuffs kind of thing. Okay. That's why you see a lot of the wrestling guys got cauliflower ears, and that was pretty much what I did. And so it actually happened with I had an altercation with an elder boy at, I think 10, maybe 10, 11, and my dad, one of my mates said, look, you need to take this kid to wrestling to my parents, and my parents said, okay, fine. And there was one rule in the wrestling club: if you ever get into a fight at school, you're not allowed to wrestle. And so that sort of controlled my aggression and understood where is the pecking order, what to do and what not to do. And it gave you advantage to look after yourself. But of course, if you try to look after yourself and it end up in a fight, then I wasn't allowed to wrestle. So that sort of stopped that. But it taught me, it gave me a lot of self-confidence as well. And I guess in my later years of being a professional rugby player, I was quite lucky because the way you wrestle, you're quite strong on the upper body, so and especially the neck area. And so from that perspective, I had very little injuries to my neck and shoulders.
There we go. I was actually just about to ask that. Surely your tackling game and jackling and all that would be like top level because you were doing it essentially almost double time compared to many others.
Yeah, I think so. And like a guy that was my roommate, Van Vermeulen, he wrestled as well. Quagga wrestled. So it's quite a cultural thing in South Africa to do it from an early age. And of course, it helps you a lot. But where I felt it is when you play against bigger boys or wrestle against bigger boys, it's a momentum game. So try to use his strength. And for me, starting my Super Rugby career at 93 kilograms, I was scrumming against guys that's pretty much 10 to 20 kilograms heavier than I was.
Yeah.
But I can function at a lot lower height. And that's what not rugby, wrestling teaches you about where the neck goes. And it gives you strength that you wouldn't have normally would have had.
There you go. See, so if you're listening, get into wrestling. You'll be fantastic at tackling. You can get lower in the scrum. You'll just be an absolute nuisance for the opposition. That's what Schalk says, basically.
Yeah, and funny enough, like there's a lot of players that people don't know that didn't wrestle. A guy like Akker van der Merwe, he wrestled as well. Well, clearly when there was a punch up on the pitch when I played for the Bulls, I only found out that later on after having a beer with him in the change room. I said, "How did you stay on top? Because normally I can get on top quite quickly." And he said, "Well, it's probably from my wrestling days." I said, "Why didn't you say that before we started, started the altercation?"
Love that. Speaking of the Springboks, obviously the big one in the summer, South Africa versus Ireland, two of the best teams in the world. How excited are you? I know you're not a neutral, definitely not neutral, but how are you looking forward to it coming into the games? And I suppose the question is, can Ireland get a win or South Africa going to get a clean sweep? Who knows?
Oh, what was funny for me, look, if you look at domestic, not domestic really, but the URC and the champions, the basic Champions Cup, you think, okay, fine, Leinster's had a superb season, right? But I do know the feeling of getting to finals and losing both, to semi-finals and losing both. And pretty much a big core of that team that played against the Bulls, unfortunately, Leinster, well, not unfortunately, but to the Bulls' credit, they won. And it's just weird because maybe Andy Farrell can bring a different attitude towards it. But there is, so the run-up normally, if they are successful, we always said if you successful in a domestic league, it sort of washes over to the international season. And that was quite funny for me with Leinster and with Munster now. Last year they won the URC. This year they lost against Glasgow when they were by far the favourites, I would think, to win at home. Maybe that will give them sort of on a different note, a wake-up call. But saying that's the only team we lost against during the World Cup. And we actually lost against Ireland quite a lot the last couple of years.
Yeah.
From Russ's perspective, I've seen going into this weekend's game against Wales, he's made a lot of changes, put some debutants in there. And I think Russ is already focusing, and people won't believe this, but it is true, on the next World Cup. And his viewpoint of how he approaches the game is not always during the 4 years of, yes, he wants to win certain games. And of course, nobody wants to lose any games, but there is a balance between giving younger players experience, because we know if your top dog gets injured, you need a guy to fill into that space. And now this is the time to do it. He's experimenting against Wales. The question is, will he do the same amount of experimenting against Ireland? I don't know. And there is an emotional thing with Russie as well, that he coached Munster. There's come out a lot of things about what Russie said about the Irish that made it extremely personal to, I guess, a lot of Irish players. So we shall see. That is a big one, but I guess from South African's perspective, the Springboks, it is first beating Wales at Twickenham, and then focusing on Ireland.
That's fair. I think the Wales game might be a bit of a blowout, though. There's no disrespect to Wales, because Wales have like a never say die attitude, but they're in like massive transition now. And yeah, even like some of the Welsh fans when the squad came out were like, "Oh dear." So
Yeah,
who knows?
look, I understand. Well, look, from playing with Welsh players and playing against them for probably 10 years of playing for Saracens, one thing you can never underestimate any Welshman, because they come out guns blazing. They are a hot bunch of individuals, and they will fight till the end. They just never shy away from an altercation or a physical battle. That is for sure. The one thing that they don't have is experience. And I guess this is now the time to say, okay, fine, let's have a pop at it. Let's breed. Let's sort of give the experience. It's a new bunch of players. Let's give the new guys the experience. They played well during the season, and see where we are. And that's sort of for them, I think, to see how far are we behind against currently the world number one side. I think that's the attitude Gatlin will go into it.
I like that. That's a very good insight. I like that. Very good. Speaking of players that you've played with, I'm giving you two options. You are starting hooker for both options, though, because you're the guest. You have to start.
Yeah.
Who's your dream front row partners from both past and present? You don't have to have ever played with them. It could just be anyone that you've admired or you like watching now. So, like, you're the hooker. You need your loose head for both past and present, and tight head for past and present.
Look, I was weighing 93 kilograms playing for the Cats. The Cats don't exist anymore, but it was a combination of the Free State and the Lions. And at that stadium, I had Marius Herter as the Tate prop and Osterant as my Lucet prop. They both played in the 95 World Cup, and they were pretty special. 93 kicks, and they were looking after me, and I scrummed against Carl Heyman, Anton Oliver, and I can't remember who the Lucet was, but they were all Blacks. And pretty much through that whole game, luckily I had a good back five looking after me. But I honestly almost passed out a couple of those scrums, and I thought, please just get the ball out. But probably the most underrated tight prop I've ever played with is a guy called Carlos Nieto. That he weighed 104, 105 kilograms. And I always thought you have to be big to scrum. And this guy was just phenomenal. It was my first season at Saracens, and I could function because as a tight height is your friend. I couldn't scrum high, so pretty much it was almost the shorter hookers or shorter tight heads that I liked, and shorter loose heads. Carlos Nieto was amazing. Within the current crop of tight heads that's currently playing, I mean, Vincent Koch and Frans Malherbe is just phenomenal. They bring different parts. I'm sort of sitting on the fence. Currently, those two guys, the combination of both of them is phenomenal. On the loose head side, of course, Osterant was phenomenal when I played with him.
Yeah.
But as a scrummaging loose head, I would say probably the most aggressive guy was Rhys Gill. They played for Wales 1 or 2 tests, but he was phenomenal at Saracens. Kits is always a pleasure to scrum with. Steven Kitsoff, but you must always be careful of a ginger, because there is some fire in his belly. But I must say, those days, even with Matt Stevens swapping around from loose to tight head every now and then, we were quite fortunate in that regard that I played with. Well, I played for 20 years, so yeah, those group of players would pretty much I'll go to war with.
That's fair. I like that. Very good options across the board there.
One guy that I would mention that I played against was Azersha. They played for Tigers and for Argentina, and
Yes.
he's this pretty special individual from a scrumming department, because he got away with murder, but he was just phenomenal in what he did.
I think they all did back then. I've heard some stories.
Yeah.
Obviously, Saracens man through and through, but was there any other teams in this part of the world or even leagues that you were interested in potentially playing for?
Look, in my early days, I always admired the Crusaders when I played Super Rugby, because they were just a team that kept on winning. And not just because, irrelevant to put that red and black shirt on, they were pretty special. I must say the Bulls squad of pretty much the era from 08 to probably 2012 or 2010, they were pretty special as well. But while I played in the Northern Hemisphere, I mean, the teams I admired in the beginning was sort of Toulouse, but they went through a bit of a purple patch. But then you had the Toulon side that was phenomenal, with Johnny leading the way, and he had just a phenomenal team of players. But I would say, in particular in my years at Saracens, it was just phenomenal playing with an unbelievable group of players, and the culture we had was phenomenal as well. Because I mean, where do they take you to Miami, to a Munich Beer Festival, to Lollapalooza Music Festival in Chicago? I mean, the trips, I mean, if I look back on my rugby career within Saracens, it was just a different way of how they treated players. And so we would go on to Barcelona within our two biggest games at that time was, for example, Northampton and Tigers. And everyone said, look, we can't go away because we have to prep for this big game. And the outlook of then Mark McCall, Brennan Fencer, and Edward Griffins would say, no, let's go. Let's have some fun. We're going to irritate the living crap out of our opposition. And let's go. Let's go make some memories. And that was literally what we did.
I love that. Since you mentioned culture, we've actually got a fan question from Harry. He's asked, what were the key differences in training culture between South Africa and England?
I think for me, it was before I left. South African coaches can, back in the day, so I'm talking about 2000, right?
Yeah.
They would thumbsuck things. It wouldn't be based on facts or data. When I got to Saracens, it was all data driven. So we trained only 3 days a week. Everything was measured, from your urine in the morning to the meters you run, your zones you train in. They were just so professional in the way they manage every player. From the kit man straight through to the CEO, everyone was on the same, how can I say, level. We all see everyone's role as equal. If you're the kit man or the CEO, you're just as important, because you need every part of that machine to function to make it work. But I would say when I got back to the Springboks in 2018, that has changed the whole way of how Rassie, I don't know if he did it before he got to South Africa or it's things that he learned from Munster days, but everything was then stats driven. I can remember we had a quant guy at Saracens doing just analysis on probabilities and percentages, and everybody said we should stop kicking. But at that particular time, and actually the same with the Springboks, it was, we were just playing the percentages. Where do you use your pack the most efficiently? Where can you play? What would give you the best probability of winning within your system? And so we would change our kicking patterns, our running patterns, all based on data. And so people that is watching rugby and think, oh, please just don't kick the ball, don't always understand the underbelly of why are we kicking, or why are we running, or why are we playing certain moves to get in certain places of the pitch, and vice versa, analyzing the opposition. And so the game of rugby has become extremely technical, but I don't think the general public knows, for example, why we play in a 1-3-3-1 split, or why Japan would play in a 2-2-2-2 split. Things like that is extremely technical, and it depends what kind of soldiers you've got and what talent you've got, and where can you use that particular talent in each part of the pitch, really. And so I think like most things like tech, everybody catches up, and the thing is, you need to keep evolving to stay in front. And so the game has moved on from the 2000s to where we are now quite significantly.
Yeah, I agree. Couldn't have worded that better. It's very interesting to get the insight, though, because like you said, a lot of the general public would complain, like, for example, why do you keep kicking it? You need to kind of be in the meetings to get all the knowing. That's why we're doing it. So
yeah. Well, look. The question. Well, let's get back to the question. It was, you said Harry that asked the question, or Henry.
The differences in training culture.
Yeah. So one thing I would say is the South African training culture can be extremely physical. We are a physical bunch of individuals. And I think in the early 2000s, we tried to play away from our strength. We tried to play like Australia, we played like New Zealand, because they were the leaders, bar 2003 when the England side played to their strength. But we tried to play a certain way that didn't fit us. We wanted to be fancy, and we wanted to be beautiful. Rassie definitely took that not away, although we scored a lot of tries, but we did it in our way. And I think we never changed when we went back to what made us good. We've got a great set piece. We've got big men. We are physical. We just need to use them in the right way. I think that is pretty much a bit different to, I guess, to how we did it at Saracens, although we played with a pack as well, and all data driven. But the one thing we didn't change in the South African setup is how physical trainings are and how physical the matches are. We play in a very, very physical way, confrontational way, and that's sometimes while we sometimes to the detriment of our patterns, we try to out-muscle people because we think it's our strength, and sometimes it wouldn't look as pretty as, for example, All Blacks Australia or whoever, but that's the way we've chosen.
Can't always win pretty.
No, 100%. If you win by 1 or you win by 50, it doesn't make a difference. You've won.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more. My co-host Andy, he's chucked in 2 questions. How did you? So he was actually praising your longevity in this question.
Yeah.
But how did you keep going in the tough environments for so long? And were you not ever like constantly in pain at some point?
So Andy, the big thing is, I think the biggest thing of any career from a longevity perspective is enjoyment. I mean, from my first game, not my first game, pretty much when I was 16 years old to pretty much the day I finished, I've really enjoyed rugby. I mean, I loved it. Don't get me wrong, there was tough times when you do fitness and you think, why would you do this to yourself? And when you've got a whole knee reconstruction. But I saw everything. I saw rugby as just a phenomenal game, and the reason why is you've got fun with your mates. And from that perspective, maybe in my early years when I studied and I played a bit of rugby, it was hard to manage everything. But as soon as I almost got to Saracens, I understood what it took to stay fit. And to stay fit and not, and yes, you'll have injuries because of that's the nature of the game. But to stay healthy, you need to unfortunately be strong. And strong means being in the gym. That keeps you healthy. And so from that perspective, I knew how my body spoke to me, and I had to manage things. And Saracens gave me a lot of leeway in managing myself. Or maybe not doing fitness, but making sure that I am fit. That's never a problem. But I would lose weight in the season just because of the way the game is being run. And so you would weigh heavier in the winter than in the summer. And so I would put it all down to loving what I'm doing and then understanding and listening to your body.
Love that. Great answer. Because the minute you stop loving what you do, it goes away.
Yeah, I can remember that after finishing the 2019 World Cup, I was sitting in an office doing a discounted cash flow, and I got a phone call from a French club. The Toulon had an injury at hooker, and I can remember when the offer came in. I said, well, I wasn't really looking at it, and I said, well, I'll send the offer in, and I'll come back to you. And pretty much, for playing for 5 months of rugby in Toulon would equate to 5 years of salary in my current role so I studied accountancy, so working in the finance department at Remgro. And so I went back home and I thought, okay, Lovey, we've got another chapter to go into. It's just, why do you want to take this offer up? I said, well, I don't have to. I can play for 5 months and it's 5 years worth of salary in the corporate world. And she says, well, have you ever played for money? I said, no. So she said, why would you want to do it now? You finished your career with no serious injuries. You've never done it for money. So why would you want to do something for money now? And actually phoned back that evening and said, sorry, I'm out. I can't do it. I've had my innings. My innings was fantastic and I'm done. And so from that perspective, it's always, and it comes actually back. I'm going to tell the story. I was at school, and South African school rugby is very big. It is, you've got, I mean, in our inter-schools, you've got 20 to 30,000 people watching this game. But we were playing against a school called Boys Eye, and we lost the game. And I was so upset after the game. But I played all right. Not great, but I played all right, but we lost. And I was miserable. And I was sitting with my mom and my dad in the car driving to the restaurant. And my dad said, what's wrong? I said, Dad, we've lost. And then he goes, well, you know, sometimes you lose, but that's just a part of life. You must learn to work with it. He says, did you enjoy it? I say, I can't use the word, Dad. I really hated it. It wasn't nice. He says, just remember, Scala, if you don't have to play rugby. If it doesn't give you joy, rather go surf, go wrestle, go do something else. Because I can tell you one thing, son, even if you lose, you still enjoy the challenge. That's life. Think back why you've lost, get to the why, and then figure out what you could have done differently. And then just don't make the same mistake twice. And lastly, remember, it's all about enjoyment. You play rugby, you're not getting paid for this. It's about enjoyment. It's not how you play it. It's not if it's winning or losing, it's how you play the game. Can you look the opposition in the eye, shake his hand, and it's all about earning respect. Sometimes you lose, but you put up a great fight. The one thing you must always do is go back to the mirror, say to yourself, did you give it your all, winning or losing, irrelevant. And then if you've lost, you go, okay, what can I do better next time?
Great advice. Your dad was like on the ball with that one. I love that. That's fantastic advice.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's not just a rugby principle, it's in life. Because what are we told from a very early age? If you're not first, you're last kind of viewpoint. If you don't succeed. But there's a great book, and that's changed my mindset a bit more, because in professional sports, nobody remembers who came second, right? But yet, if you go to a book called Black Box Thinking from Matthew Saheed, he wrote, I think, something to do with a 10,000 hour rule as well. I can't remember the book's name now, but those are the two books that I've read that he's written. And so in the Black Box Thinking, it's about, actually, it's one thing, it's medicine, and aviation, and they sort of compare the two, where in aviation, if there's a near failure, you still do the same due diligence after the near failure. In medicine, it's totally different. It's sort of the doctors are protected, and don't want to go too much detail into the book itself, but the crux of the matter in that whole book is about not embracing failure and accept failure. But if you accept it, is how do you accept it? And then you go to, okay, fine. What could I have done different on the prep? What I can different on the pre-game, then in-game, or whatever it might be, and what profession you are? What can I have done better? And every time it's like a never-ending loop in everything. Every conversation, on every action. What did I win? Did I lose? Yes or no? And then you sort of, there's diagram, and then you go back, okay, if I've won, why have I won? What could I have done better, even if I won? And so you take away the emotion of losing and the emotion away from winning. And then you sort of look at a very process-driven way of analyzing success and failure.
That's amazing.
Black box thinking, I would highly recommend you reading it. It's just, and it comes actually down to tech, is because everybody thinks you have to have the perfect product to launch a product. But if you look at a lot of things, the new tech companies, how they launch products, they reiterate, go updates after update after update, and they use, instead of just looking at the result, they look at feedback and how can you constantly improve that product. And you can use that in rugby, you can use it in life, you can use it in actually raising your kids. And now when we were packing, I was like, after the pack, they weren't helping me as much. I said, how must I approach it differently that you guys can help me pack the clothes into the suitcase? Because my first approach failed, because I asked you, and we had a long day on the beach, and they were watching a movie, and I can't get the action. I'm like, okay, give me feedback that I can understand how you guys work. What must we do next time? Anyway, so that is where I'm coming from.
I make, like, from my oldest, I do games, like, if he's not going to get dressed, I'll be like, well, I bet you can't get dressed before I've made, like, toast or something. So it's like, ready? And then he's dressed.
Yeah.
Magic of the competition.
that works when they're younger. When they're 12 and 10, they've got something a lot more interesting than it is. And yet, so once again, it is trying to understand them better in the whole process as well. Like, of course, dads do most things similar to an extent. I like challenging them on things, but sometimes when they've got something more interesting, I need to find a different approach. And sometimes they just need to get on with it, right? So it's I'm ever learning, and I've probably learned more from the kids and my missus, my wife, than anyone else.
Oh yeah, I've become a very good negotiator since becoming a parent.
100%.
If you do this, we can do that. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. That's simple.
Win-win. Let's go.
Yeah, can you meet me halfway, sort of thing. Doesn't always work that way, because they still continue to just, like, the one that he doesn't understand the out is in a minute. I'm not saying no. Just give me a second. Let me finish what I'm doing. But Dad, 100%. What about this? Yeah, but just if you let me finish, then I can go and do it. If you keep moaning at me, I won't be finished.
Yeah, 100%.
Andy has also asked, this one's a kind of a cheekier question. Where do you keep your World Cup winners medal? He's also asked, where do you keep your bronze medal? Do you have the bronze medal?
2015, we lost against New Zealand in the quarterfinal. We played Argentina in the third and fourth. Actually, I don't know even where it is in my house. I've got nothing up in my house that you would walk into the house and you wouldn't even know I was a rugby player. All my a lot of the shirts I gave away, but those that I do still have, it's in a suitcase stored away.
Okay.
The one thing is, yes, I'm very proud of it, and I sometimes I'll take it to school just for people to touch it, to give a bit of inspiration. But
Yeah.
where it is, I don't know. And secondly, you would understand this, May, but I don't want my kids ever to be reminded that their dad is a rugby player. There's enough people every time when we walk around or people stop me, even now in Bali, for pictures and stuff. There's enough people that can remember that. But for me, I never want my kids to live in my shadows. They
No.
must be a better version of me and my wife, and they must be their own people. And so, from that perspective, it is for me just amazing to see them on their journey. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to see it, is there's always expectation that they will succeed in a particular sport or particularly rugby. And so, I mean, my three boys, one plays fly half, the other one plays wing and fly half, and the other one is too young to play positions yet. But there's already, so we've got, funny enough, and just in the school we are in South Africa, Stellenbosch, it's called Akerstad. But we've got Michael Clausen that played 9 for Springboks and Bath. We've got Brian Abana that played wing. We played John de Crea. We've got 2 other players, JD Moller and Neil Fullard. They both played Stormers with me as they were my props. And so, did I forget anyone? And Neil the Cock is next door to another school. So it's all there's enough people reminding you that there is Springboks kids at that school. So, but personally, for me, there's nothing up in my house. I've got some beautiful pictures of us as a family, and my wife loves art. So there's a couple of abstract things in the house, but there's none of the rugby part or things of my life. Maybe when they're old enough, then you'll put some of those things up. But for now, nothing.
Fair enough. Actually, come to think of it, because obviously like, content creating and all that, you get opportunities. I did the Women's Six Nations game last year, and you get like the coin to keep.
Yeah.
It's in its bag that came with it, and I think it's like tucked away. It's not on show or anything. It's all family pictures and yeah. So, it's just one.
Look. The one thing that I think my eldest son Christian still got when so at every 10th birthday, one of the boys can pick a trip wherever they would like to go to. And of course, all 3 of my boys were born in Luton and Dunstable. And anyway, my eldest wanted to. He's a Spurs supporter, and unfortunately, he's a Spurs supporter, and I'm an Arsenal supporter. And my middle son is Man City, and the youngest is Spurs because his brother is Spurs. The youngest adores his eldest. But anyway, so on this 10-year anniversary of his life, he can pick a trip with his mom, only mom and son trip. Anyway, so he decided he wants to go watch Spurs, Saracens, and then he wants to do Disney World. Anyway, so off they go. They went and watched Saracens against Sharks, and Ben Earl was the man of the match that particular day. And of course, my son goes into the change room, says hi to the players because they all still know him, and he knows everyone. And Ben Earl gives his man of the match medal to my boy, and that's the one medal that's in his room. It's sad to say that it's English players medal and not a South African players medal. But I mean, and so a lot of times people must just remember when you ever in that position, that kind of thing of Ben giving my son that medal, and it is amazing that Ben did it, was just such a big, of everything that he could remember, he said the best part was Ben giving the medal. Not Disney World, he did love Spurs. I think Spurs beat Newcastle 5-1 that day. But that was one thing. And the human element just stands out as Ben doing that, something that he probably would have forgotten now. But my son will never forget that.
Yeah, I mean, my 4-year-old's like that because he's starting to get into rugby now, watching it with me,
Yeah.
likes the Edinburgh boys, and I think there was like an open training session where you get to go and meet the team and all that, and I took him, and I think Pierre Schumann picked him up and held him on the
Yeah.
shoulders. There's a picture of my oldest, and like shows like flexing and got him in this little gap here, and
Yeah.
Cam still talks about it. Yeah, He's like, do you
Yeah.
remember when we went to rugby and Shuey picked me up? I'm like, yes, I remember. I'm like, good that you
Yeah.
remember. So yeah, it's just one of those things, isn't it?
Yeah. 100%.
We've got two more big questions before we go into something else. Another co-host, we kind of all chop and change it who's hosting each week. Cam,
Yes, mate.
proud South African that lives in Wales, but anyways, he asked you, how did you persevere when your style of playing was so different to others in that position?
Probably, I was quite hard ass in the way my viewpoint as a hooker towards the game, right? So pretty much I probably would have, I don't know. I don't know if I choose a different path. It's sort of, what's that movie called, Sliding Doors, or I can't remember the movie's name, but if I probably picked a different path. And my dad asked me the same question. Had this opportunity as a young kid playing for the Stormers, and Gert Smal was the coach, and he was sort of referring to, if I don't weigh 105 kilograms or big enough, that I won't ever play for his team. And so at that particular, after I finished my studies, I decided, well, if he's not going to pick me, I'm going to make a success of it in my way. I don't have to be 105. And I didn't want to play rugby at 105. I want to
Yeah.
play rugby at 97 that time, 95, whatever it was. I wanted to play rugby in my way. And so from that perspective, I knew South Africans normally like bigger players. And unfortunately, I had to go away to be sort of recognized at home. But saying that, my international career was pretty unremarkable, although I had success with the 2019 group and I've made some amazing memories. That's just the way I picked it. And to go back to the essence of why I play was for the fun of it. I wanted to play rugby in the way I want to play rugby. I wanted to be a more versatile running type of hooker, and not the big guy, because I'm not playing to my strength. And from that perspective, yes, I'll probably sacrifice a couple of test matches if I was a bit bigger, but I loved every second of the game I played, and the way I played it. And pretty much I've got no regrets not being 105 kilograms. And that was my argument. I moved the kind of same weight as the opposition in the gym. I maybe didn't weigh 105 or 115 or whatever they other hookers weigh, but I was strong enough to succeed in my position. I can't change perception. I can just do what I like, and if people like me, then, or I think this is maybe for all players, is find the right coach. Really be honest with yourself, and if you've got weaknesses, work on it. If you don't, play to your strength and be better at what you are good at. Don't always look at your weaknesses.
There we go. Just the knowledge coming from you today is awesome. I can feel it. You're inspiring me to get back on the field, and that's a long way off. Keith Hendon has asked, what is the 3 qualities you think are needed to be a successful Springbok?
Don't be entitled. Firstly, you don't deserve a shirt. You don't deserve your school shirt. You don't deserve the Springbok shirt. You don't deserve any shirt of the shirts behind you. It is something you must work hard to earn. And for me, it is the question that you have to pose to yourself is, have you left the shirt in a better place after you've given it back? Because you never own that shirt. Maybe for a couple of years, or maybe a season, or maybe a game. The question is, did you leave it in a better place when you've left? And so for me, is I always look at, not just in rugby but in life, how are you successful? Two things that is, unfortunately, that never you can get lucky, or talent can get you to a certain spot, but it unfortunately stops because at one stage everyone is talented that you play against, but you need discipline and a great work ethic to get to a certain level. But the one thing I only learned later in life is the human element. And I'll take you back to 2007, 2008, where I just couldn't break into the Springbok side. And I couldn't understand why. My stats were fantastic. I stats at all my tackles, all my runs, meters, offloads, steals, lineouts, scrums. Everything was in not an Excel spreadsheet, but it was written down of all my analysis. I couldn't get into the team, and I went to John Smith and said, John, I can't understand how I can't make the team. It's just so, I don't understand it. My performance is good enough, but I can't get in. My performance is fantastic. And anyway, it comes down to the following question that was posed to me back is, yes, Scully, you're a great rugby player, but here's a question. Do you know Albert van der Berg's kids' names? Do you know Yannick du Plessis' wife's name? And I have no idea what their names is. That's the problem, Scott. It's all about you. Yeah. And that's a one thing is, in life, you can go quick by yourself, but you can go very far with a team. And so from that perspective, I learned then it is not just about me and myself. And it's more about the team I'm doing it with. And so I'm going to stop just looking at where I can improve, but actually have compassion and empathy and for people around me. And I think that's the biggest thing that you must understand. Yes, you can be good, but it's a lonely place when you're alone.
There we go. You need to write a book on just spiritual and like motivation advice and everything. I'd buy that book because you're just inspiring everyone so far. It's great. It's awesome.
I don't know if I would inspire anyone, Murray, but it's just experiences out of my book of life, right? And so we all learn and try to have a growth mindset of, I guess, just learning from other people's mistakes. And unfortunately, you learn best by making your own mistakes, right?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got all that out of the way. It's time to learn about Schalk as a person. Get to know you away from the rugby field. So, what is your favourite movie?
Usual Suspects was an unbelievable movie back then. Just Kaz at the end, how he changed, it was just phenomenal. To this day, it was pretty much just a great movie with a great twist. The first movie I cried on was Lion King and and my Girl, where I think Macaulay Culkin died with the bee sting. So that's very old. Things that I've
seen The Lion King, but I haven't seen the Macaulay Culkin film. I've only seen Home Alone.
Girl. Home Alone was fantastic back then as well.
Macaulay Culkin, I've not seen any of his other stuff.
Like, I can remember as a kid watching Rambo. That was, people probably listening to this, you have to be probably born in the 80s to remember that. And Sylvester Stallone was, and Jean-Claude Van Damme was, back then it was all just, wasn't great in-depth movie, but it's great. Inception was phenomenal. I love that. There is so many great movies that has been produced over the years. But I like, that's the type of stuff that I like with the twist.
Yeah, nice mix. I like it. So, who's your favourite actor?
Actor, um, I would say Leonardo DiCaprio
Okay.
is just
Yeah.
a great actor. Um,
He's just good in everything,
yeah,
really.
yeah, it's fantastic. What's the movie called? X Norton. He's a great actor as well.
Hmm.
I like, yeah, but that's pretty much the two things that two actors that I quite like.
Fair enough. If there was a film on your career, who would you have to play Schalk Brits?
um,
You
I
could go as a
actually don't
bland
know.
as you want.
Uh, well, Matt Damon did play Franchopino's role, and
There, yeah.
but I mean, seeing Matt and then seeing Francha, the size difference is quite different, right? So, but Francha's a big guy, Matt is not a big guy, but I guess um, the the guy that would be the funniest to play my role, although our body size is not similar, would be Jamie George. He would be he would be a great actor.
Fair enough. I like that. I was actually going to go for Jean-Claude Van Damme, just because there you go. Why
Uh,
not?
yeah, well, he's got too many. He's too well built. I'm just the average size though, small.
An
He looks
average
massive
size
though.
super. Okay, we're just going to pretend that
Uh,
wasn't just made. What's your favorite? I say style of like music genre or song. What's your go-to song?
well, funny enough, I love classical music when I studied with a busy mind and very active.
Hmm.
How can I say, almost attention deficit disorder. Classical music, I got exposed to that from a very young age. My mom exposed me to that. So I
Well,
do like that kind of like I go on Spotify and just put classical music on and listen to that. Currently, I mean, there's a lot of South African rock that rocks, but like my kids has influenced me. I think currently in our playlist, they love was the Stick Season. Is that a song?
oh
Stick
yeah, yeah,
Stick.
yeah. No, I can.
They
Yeah.
they play it on repeat the whole time. It's driving me absolutely crazy, but I love it. Jimmy Sachs when I want to get the room going.
Okay.
Is it's we were in Barcelona and as a team,
Mhm.
and there was a unbelievable, beautiful lady came onto the stage. Someone was playing some house music, and we were dancing, and a lady came onto the stage with some what is it called mist or whatever, steam coming from the sides, and she was
Okay.
playing on the saxophone, and from that moment, a saxophone is sort of I love it. It's a great with house music. It just gets a room going.
Fair. I like that.
But
Um.
as a younger kid, things that
Okay.
was constantly on my playlist was Queen, U2, INXS. That was sort of the music I loved. U2 was like that's a one concert I never went to, but always wanted to go to. I mean, Bono was just phenomenal. I can remember buying a Blu-ray DVD back in the day, but and then watching him. There was a concert. I can't remember which one where there's a heart on the stage, and it was just phenomenal to yeah to listen to him.
Fair. I mean, you could always see them. I think they're doing the Sphere over in Las Vegas. So who knows? Never say never.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I feel wrong asking a South African this because I feel like I already know the answer, but I have to ask it. What's your favorite style of food?
We get brought up with a braai, man. Murray, there is even living in England. I know it's called a barbecue, but I mean, it just doesn't feel right on doing it on a Weber. I mean, open fire, just the taste of meat just tastes differently. And just to put a great ribeye with a couple of chops, with some sausages, or we call it boerewors, with braaibroodjies. And braaibroodjies is sort of bread with cheese, onion, and tomato, and they put it on the flames. It's just a great, and then any kind of salad, and pretty much most of the time you don't even eat the salads.
No.
You just eat the meat. So from that perspective, that is like my favorite food. But I would say things that I got exposed to in London was Indian food. There
Okay.
is some amazing Indian food in England, and that's my naughty treat every now and then.
I like that. I like that. You know, I've interviewed countless South Africans, and I've never been invited to a braai. So, maybe one day. Who knows?
If you ever come to Stellenbosch or Cape Town or South Africa, let me know, and I'll definitely put on some proper meat for you.
I'll keep that in mind. I will definitely keep that. You'll be the first person I text if I ever get
Okay,
to South
100%.
Africa. What is your go-to drink? And I mean alcohol. Night on the town, big win. What are you drinking? Or even what are you drinking now? What social?
So I've always, just from a young age, I don't know if everybody or who listens to this, but from a young age, we always had finance meetings. And you consume so much of those beers that you normally sick at the end. And I can't taste, and I couldn't, well, to be fair, I've never liked the taste of beer, but that is always, you down, you relieve yourself, and then in a get it back in the bin, and then off you go, right? So that's my go-to drink would be Jameson or a Singleton with just a couple of blocks of ice. If I don't, that is just, I love my whiskey, I love my wine. And if I have to drink something, in South Africa, it's called a Hunters. It's like a refreshing cider. That is
Okay.
just amazing. And I even while I lived in London, I would go to the South African butcher, buy my biltong, buy a Hunters Dry, and have some whiskey with it every now and then.
There you go. That sounds really nice. I like the idea of that. It's very fitting that you're on holiday, because that is the next question. Where is your dream holiday destination, or are you currently in it?
I must say, for someone, I regret not having my board here or not. So always bodyboarded. The wave is just too quick here for bodyboarding, and so I regretted not taking up surfing earlier. I started surfing on my sabbatical. That's definitely, Bali is phenomenal. The people are friendly. The food is great. It's reasonably priced, and so I'm currently at Anantara in Uluwatu. That is phenomenal. But the other place was definitely my honeymoon, or not my honeymoon, our honeymoon in the Maldives was phenomenal. But I mean, the world is such an amazing spot. Japan 2019 World Cup, I would love to go back there. It is just the way that people treat you. It's just phenomenal. My wife loves Italy. We went to last year to Portugal, and that was actually our first trip to the Algarve. Cascais was amazing. And I just like seeing the different parts of the world and different populations doing different things, loving different things. And we went to a Japanese spot last night, the night before, to a traditional Bali place. And it's just nice tasting different things and seeing how people do differently and culturally they're different. And so from that perspective, that's actually the one big reason for traveling away from South Africa, is giving my kids exposure to different cultures and different foods and different ways of doing things.
That's good. I like that. That's a very good reason as well. Final question for you today. One thing you'd like to be remembered for?
Enjoying what I do and making people just feel happy.
I like that. It's good. It's a good answer. And you made me happy, because I've got to sit and interview Schalk Brits for an hour. It's been awesome. It's been great.
Murray, thank you for your time. The one thing that I've only learned later in life is a lot of times people will, well, there's one thing saying that people will forget what you said, but they will never forget how they made you feel. And so one thing that I'm trying to teach my boys is people will long forget how you if you've won or lose, but people will rarely forget how you played the game. And so if I look at, for example, Roger Federer, for me, he's the ultimate icon and role model. The way he plays the game is in such a mannerism and style and grace and gentlemanship that you'll have a lot better, not a lot better. There's not people that are easily surpass all his grand slams. I know Djokovic, I think, has beaten his level with Nadal, I think.
Yeah.
But people will remember him for the way he played the game of tennis. And so that's what I'm trying to teach my boys. Yes, that doesn't mean you're less competitive, but people will remember, and I hope people will remember how much I love the game of rugby and with what joy I played the game.
Great, I love that. I could feel how much you love the game. Even speaking about earlier on about the South African and Ireland fixtures come out, I could tell how much you love the game. It's been an absolute delight, and you are welcome back anytime, because this has been an absolute treat. I cannot thank you enough for coming on, but just like that, the book is shut because you absolutely smashed it, Schalk.
Thank you, Murray. I hope you've got a great night and day left, and enjoy the weekend. And to all the listeners out there, remember you only live once, so live life.
What a way to end it. Well, this has been the final whistle with Schalk Brits. We will see you next time.
One.